Welcome to the panel on how Africans abroad are fueling the AI revolution. I'm Yang Chengxi with China Global Television Network. Now, first of all, before we start, with a show of hands, how many of you are from the African tech diaspora? Yep. Wow. Great, we're going to have a great conversation today. Well, let's start by giving the audience an overview of yourself and your ventures.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Francisco. I'm the founder of Team Sports. Team Sports is a sports technology platform that uses AI and computer vision and machine learning, one type of AI, to capture accurate performance data and provide to athletes and clubs and coaches.
Wow. Geminatu?
I'm Geminatu Alabisama and the co-founder of Tech Connect Africa. And we're building a social network, we're a global social enterprise, bringing techies in the diaspora together, fostering networks on the continent, abroad, and making sure that we know what each other is working on and highlighting African excellence in tech.
Yeah, so I think you guys are the best candidates to talk about this. Now, when we talk about AI, many people think about the US, Europe, or China, but what about Africa? What are the best examples of AI trends and use cases in the region?
I can start, yeah. We're seeing a lot of trends around healthcare, maternal health, telemedicine, diagnostics, just distances between a local hospital versus where the population actually lives.
It's better.
Okay. Oh my God.
Oh, you're getting the handheld. We were talking about you're getting the handheld mic.
Okay, so back maternal health, telemedicine, and diagnostics to help with like maybe cities and the population between the hospital versus how population can get to that hospital. So with AI being able to say, okay, this is the type of situations that are happening in this particular village, how can we support them faster? So medicine is really important. Education, ed tech, really making it equitable for all. I think AI really can help with that. FinTech, I mean, remittances that we send back home as a diaspora. So AI really has a huge influence around that.
Francisco?
I think I would agree with all of this. So medtech, edtech are definitely the big areas growing worldwide and in Africa primarily. And what we're seeing is that Africans are able to adopt open technologies in AI and artificial intelligence, in particular computer vision, to accelerate their growth and bring innovation to the continent.
And these are very meaningful applications. And besides startups, what are multinational companies, big tech, doing in this space as well?
Yes, so with big tech, we're seeing them build AI research centers in specific countries, which is exciting, employing researchers or AI researchers that are from those countries, supporting AI education by creating certificates for fundamentals so that the average person can learn about AI, or if you're a university graduate and you want to take it a step further, there's master's programs and PhD programs that multinationals are funding. And so I think that's really exciting for a chance for African students or just African young professionals to take AI one step further with the support of big national companies.
Let's go.
And I think starting with education is definitely the way forward. And education will enable us to have a seat on the table. That's very important. You know, once AI, we bypass the hype of AI, what will remain is the true applications where AI can help.
I mean, what would you say are the biggest challenges in fostering the AI industry in Africa?
I think AI is a big topic. And I think we really need to step back from the generic idea of AI and understand what types of AI are out there, understand what are they good at before we dive headfirst into AI. Because just like any other technology, AI cannot solve all our existential problems. And so that for me is, and I see that happen time and time again, is don't get caught up in the hype of AI. learn to step back and understand what the technologies behind it are good at, and then go forward with understanding that they can actually help you with your business and your customers, or delivery medicines, and so on. So that's really important.
Jem?
I mean, I would like to quote a friend of big tech. You can't innovate for what you don't know, right? And so we want to make sure that we're at the forefront. We're helping mitigate biases that come along with AI. So those are some of the challenges we're seeing. If we're not at the table, if we don't have a seat at the table, we're not able to support or even launch AI products if we don't know what's going on. So I think to help, some of the challenges is about awareness, educating ourselves, making sure that the diaspora who are working in AI in these big tech companies or startups abroad come home and support what's happening locally. Share your insights, share experiences, network, connect with each other, and that I think would help some of the challenges that we may face with AI on the continent. It's important for us to see ourselves as a united front when we're tackling AI, because if you don't have a seat at the table, and I think that's really important, you don't have a seat at the table, you can't complain, you can't get upset when pictures describing what Africans look like or are doing come across as false. Were you there to help from the very beginning? Were you there to support some of these, to mitigate some of the biases that that AI could portray about what we look like or what we do as Africans? So having a seat at the table is always key.
And that has to be intentional.
Yeah.
It cannot be sort of as a byproduct. It has to be intention, and you need to make sure that if you want to be part of the AI innovation and revolution, you need to be intentional about it. And that intentionality needs to be reflected in your technology choices. It's not just sort of the label AI on my business brand, etc. That boils down to your choice of technology. But you need to be intentional about it. Otherwise, yes, we will continue perpetuating the same inequalities that we already see in the world.
Another challenge I might throw out is, correct me if I'm wrong, but researchers in general can be quite introverted. So they just want to work. They just want to do research. But we also need help with highlighting the African excellence and the work that they're doing. So making sure that researchers are getting the shine that they need, so that governments and regulators and policymakers can believe in what they're doing for the continent. It's not just a small research project. It can actually solve real problems. But if researchers aren't talking about it, or there aren't platforms that are highlighting the work that they're doing, it can go unnoticed, and that can create more issues.
Yes, and is that something you're doing with Tech Connect
Yeah,
Africa?
with Tech Connect, we host conferences all around where the diaspora lives, in most places, so UK, US, Canada, but we make sure every year we host our main conferences on the continent and make sure our panels highlight the work that the diaspora is doing in big tech, local tech, startups. This year, our theme is uniting the diaspora through AI innovation. And I think making sure that researchers get an opportunity to sit on panels or come to events like this to share, give them a little nudge, I think that can also help.
Yeah. And what about funding? What is the status quo on that?
I'm not sure I can speak about funding. I have raised funding. Funding is always challenging. I don't think this is a problem exclusive to the African continent. What I think the opportunity really here is for governments to step into the funding wave and be able to fund startups and fund programs in innovation in AI. I think starting there, I think the private sector will follow suit if the opportunity is in place, if the ecosystems are in place, if the researchers are taking part and sitting on a table and speaking and being part of the conversations in AI. That would definitely help massively.
Yes.
Ooh, funding.
Yes.
I would say governments may find it difficult to fund something they don't understand, which is why policy is key, education is key. But we're seeing a lot of funding sources from multinationals. They'll run cohorts for AI-enabled startups, you know, the buzzwords. So fueling their training and their support. But I think diasporans are the new angel investors. So a lot of the startups shouldn't be afraid to look at your big brother that works at, you know, some big tech company that's looking to invest back home. Don't be afraid to tap on people that you know in your network. So those are some of the funding sources that I think we can get creative about. It's great for governments. Please, governments, anyone that's listening out, please look at AI-enabled startups, but don't forget the diaspora.
Yeah, sure. Now, the world is moving towards AI regulation, and international cooperation is starting to take place. So what kinds of regulation, AI regulation, do you wish to see or not wish to see in order to facilitate a more accelerated, inclusive, and equitable AI environment in the African continent?
This is such a tricky topic, right? Because regulation can foster and can hinder the progress of technology, right? And if the governments don't understand what they're doing, how can they properly regulate? So ideally, we want to see regulation where is regulation to enable innovation in AI, and perhaps regulation that will stop people from committing, serious crimes, with the use of AI. But otherwise, regulation tends to slow down innovation, and there it becomes a bit of a dangerous place for regulations or for governing bodies or governments sort of to step in, because generally what we've seen in history, governments are not in the forefront of innovation, and so I don't think they should be the ones regulating. I think innovation should sort of be fostered, and the regulation should be there to enabling that. Nothing else.
I think regulators should take a look at some of the AI principles that big tech have published years ago, right? And get them to the table to talk about what responsible AI and ethical AI looks like, because they've had to create those principles for a reason. They're public entities. Or they're public-facing entities, sorry. So I think bringing big tech to the table, looking at their AI principles, scrutinizing them a bit, seeing how they can make it culturally relevant and nuanced could help some of the regulators.
Yes, because we're talking about the social impact of AI, right? A lot of the most popular AI applications are developed by these Western big techs, and few are homegrown in Africa. So do you think like the multinational companies should be held more accountable in this, right?
Not necessarily more accountable, but if you're a multinational and you have a presence in a specific African country, you're doing trainings, you have a research center, then yes, then maybe you should be more accountable of what's going on, because you are technically the thought leader, but you want to bring others up with you, right? But if you're not in a specific country, I don't think you should be held accountable across the board. So it's where you're placed, where you're present, get involved locally, make sure you're hiring locally, or hiring qualified researchers who are from those countries to help support you, but I don't think you're necessarily accountable unless you're present in those countries.
Yes.
I will disagree slightly. I think we definitely need to have a seat on the table. African researchers, African innovation startups need to have a seat on the table. However, this ties in with where the funding is and how the big tech can actually provide a seat at the table. So enabling that sort of ecosystem is the way forward. I'm not sure, I guess accountable perhaps in a sense that accountable for not providing those ecosystems, and accountable for not supporting the local startups.
Like developer communities.
Exactly.
Right.
That is the sort of accountability that I want to see more of
Oh, I like that.
from the big tech
Yes.
in the world.
Yes, and what about the specifics in the development phase as well? Because we've long talked about potential biases or discriminations against people with African descent among all these popular AI tools. And what do you think about that issue?
I mentioned earlier, you need to be deliberate about it. Instead of adopting a model that was trained, you don't know how, you don't know by whom or where, just step back a bit. Perhaps use those models out there to create a prototype, but don't put that in production. Don't put that to be sort of in a critical path of your business at all. That would be a mistake, generally speaking, because your business will have, your business and customers will have needs that are very particular to the solutions that you offer. And those models have not been trained to do that.
Right.
They're not been trained to support that. They've been trained in a very broad, very generalist way. So my recommendation to anyone that wants to adopt AI is just step back a bit and learn how can you train a model yourself. How can you source the data that will put together your model, will use to be train your model, so that you do not sort of contribute to the biases that we already see out there with existing models.
But I have a question for you. Sorry. Do
Go
you
ahead.
think we should have more African users? So get more the everyday consumer utilizing AI to help feed the model?
Absolutely not. I think we need to be power users. So instead of being consumers of a product that was not designed for us, we need to learn how we can put together similar products that were designed for us.
I love that.
Without the biases that the models out there already have. That is
That's the difference.
that's the difference that we need to make in producing AI.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Yes. Now, we're talking about a huge developing region that, as time progresses, might become a major part in the world AI community. So from the perspective of the quote-unquote global south, the developing world, do you think AI could help the region catch up in tech, or is it the other way around that it might just widen the gap? It is if we're not careful, if it's under-regulated or misregulated.
Ooh.
I'm
sorry.
No, go for it.
I think it can help catch up. It doesn't hurt. But like Francisco said, we just need to make sure that not only we're at the seat of the table, but we're creating, right? We're making sure that AI researchers that are of African descent are at the forefront. But I think it'll also help create equality. Yeah, I think it could really help bring us all together.
Sure, yeah. If I could rule the world, I would say let's start with funding and education, because that brings representation, that brings a seat at the table, that eliminates some of the bias that we see in the models that were not designed for us.
Yep.
And that will also then foster the innovation, that is local innovation, that is meant for what we're launching our business for. That's what we do if I could rule the world, but
Yeah.
that's not the case.
Now, you have an AI app, you have
Sure.
an AI application,
Sure.
and are you now starting to think about how to navigate future potential regulation at this point? Because we're seeing some early attempts in regulations, right? The EU has a new AI Act that assigns AI into 3 risk categories, and China, for example, now requires all developers to register their, at least large language models, to be registered at the government, right? So what do you make of these early attempts, and are you making preparations for a future of regulation?
So my view on regulation is quite reserved in that sense, and I don't think government should have access to the models and to the code base, because where does IP, how will we maintain IP on that? And I'm not sure governments are in the best place to actually assess the quality of models and AI algorithms, generally speaking. My experience in building AI algorithms since 2018, when AI was not
a buzzword.
was not a buzzword, so I had to explain what we were doing very, very carefully, in a simplistic way, is that we made a deliberate attempt to foresee things like privacy. So for example, we use computer vision and machine learning to track athletes exercising, but we don't record a video of that athlete doing so. So therefore, children can use, and it's safe. So there isn't a video of any young athletes in our servers. But we went beyond that. We know that sports are played by not only by able bodies like many of us. It's also played by para athletes. And so if you are bound to a wheelchair, if you might not have the same mobility than an able body, we also made sure that that was included in our model. And that's just a startup. And that is being deliberate about your technology choices to understand your target audience and go down into the rabbit hole in AI is not as magical and as unknown as some companies out there make look like to be. Is actually possible, is tangible. I don't have any PhD, and I've been writing AI algorithms, so anyone here can do it. But you need to be deliberate about that. You need to be able to foresee potential regulation and say, oh, hold on, what is your stand on privacy? It's like, actually, we've done it already, so we don't invade our user privacy when on our models and solutions and business solutions. So, yeah.
So as the final question, for anyone who are eager to explore AI opportunities in the African continent, what are the attitudes of African governments towards AI regulation or fostering the AI industry? Are there any encouragement, supports, or limitations?
I would say just do your due diligence, come to the continent, do your research, come to conferences about tech or about AI on the continent. I know it's great to stay in your home countries abroad and talk about it, but let's be about it and come and learn from what people are already doing on ground. And governments, we talked about this earlier, it's about educating them. So they're going to attend these conferences. There's conversations that need to be had. If you're an investor looking for African AI-enabled startups, they exist. So I would say due diligence, research, and more important, attending conferences about tech and AI on the continent, because they do exist.
Yes. Your closing remarks?
Any closing remarks? Don't get caught up in the hype of AI. So I keep saying this again and again. Don't get caught up in the hype, because we'll stop being a hype and you'll be left to pick up the pieces. So go back to the drawing board, launch your prototypes, but dive deep in trying to understand exactly what's going on behind the scenes. That it was probably the one takeaway.
Okay. Thank you guys very much for sharing your insights, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.